So as you know by now, the election being over, we thought things, along with the election being over, would be over as well politically, and that's certainly not the case. We have the issue with the not swearing in or not swearing allegiance to King Charles III become a bit of an issue. But then, kind of out of left field, Éric Duhaime, the leader of the Conservative Party here in Quebec, came out after losing the election and not winning in his own riding, by the way, so no elected representatives for the Conservatives in this election, said he's ready to organize protests if access to the National Assembly continues to be denied to his party. Mr. Duhaime is on the line right now. Thank you for the time this afternoon. I just want to ask you one question, which is simply this. What are you doing?
Well, what we're doing is that we want to represent over 500,000 Quebecers who voted for us. The Conservative Party of Quebec had as much votes almost as the Liberals, as Québec solidaire, or as the Parti québécois. And it was the worst democratic distortion in Quebec's history. It never happened before that a party gets 13% in the boxes and at the end of the day gets no elected members. And I understand we knew the rules before we started. That being said, the rules are adapted afterwards just to make sure that we reflect minimally what's going on. We're not going to say 500,000 Quebecers that their vote's worth nothing. What we want to say is that we want to make sure that people keep faith in our institutions and the importance of voting. How are we going to convince people to increase the participation rate if we're saying that 500,000 people cannot get anything in the National Assembly? I'm not asking to sit as a member. I'm not asking more public money anyway. What I'm asking for is to make sure that I keep giving press conferences within the National Assembly like I did over the last 2 years, and to make sure we have an office inside the walls, and that people, the one Quebecer out of 7 that voted for us is represented within the National Assembly instead of outside the National Assembly.
I just want to ask one thing. You said something interesting, which was, we have to show Quebecers that the rules, need to be respected. Those rules that apply to an election, you lose an election, you're not elected, you have no elected members. The rules say you don't get to go and sit in the National Assembly.
Mr. Wren, the rules, they change also after the results. For example, in the last election, Québec solidaire and the Parti québécois did not meet the standards, 12 members and 20% of the vote to get officially recognized as parliamentary groups. That being said, everybody agreed, all parties agreed, that it made no sense that we exclude those people, and they decided to give them their status.
Well, then why wouldn't you wait for all groups to vote again to give you status? That hasn't happened, so why are you protesting that?
Well, I called the leader of all parties over the last few days. I spoke to every single one of them, made my case, and we're going to have negotiation process starting next week. I would have hoped to do it right, like yesterday when I was holding my press conference. I had to do it outside the National Assembly. Fortunately, it was good. It wasn't raining and it was too cold yesterday, but we can't do that all year around. So I just want to make sure that the parties understand that, and that we are represented, and people. It's not for me, and it's not even for the Conservative Party of Quebec. It's for democracy in Quebec to make sure that we already have a distortion. We already have a premier, if you recall, who was in favor of proportional representation. We even signed documents, and he committed to it during an election campaign. And now, not only he doesn't even want to remember that, he doesn't want to promise it, but he's even denying access to 13% of the people within the National Assembly. It just makes no sense. Okay,
so you have said if Mr. Legault does not go along with this, that he will suffer the consequences. What would those consequences be?
Well, I think that in the eye of the public, he will be perceived as somebody who's not very democratic. He's already been the premier who's put democracy on hold for the longest in Quebec's history. The power has never been concentrated in the hands of one single man as much as with him. There's never been contracts given without any submissions for as much as it's been during his mandate. And if he starts his second mandate by denying 13% of voters a right to be inside the National Assembly, it's just going to add to his record.
Okay, I have to then bring up, in the past you have taken offense to having been compared to Trump, and yet when I listen to you, Mr. Duhaime, questioning the very democratic process, it sounds very much like Trump.
I'm not denying the results, Natasha. What I'm saying is that there's the results are clear. There's one Quebecer out of 7 that voted for us. In our lifetime, we've never seen a party growing as fast as the Conservative Party has done over the last year in Quebec. We've never seen a party growing from 0 to 13% within an election. It's exceptional what happened. Unfortunately, it didn't translate in elected members, but it did. There's something that happened. and we need to take that into account. We can't tell 500,000 Quebecers that their votes don't matter. I mean, we live in a democratic society or we don't.
But hold on, let me stop you there. What about the other 7.5 million Quebecers who are fine with the election the way it turned out and happy with it?
Well, do you think it's normal that a party that gets as much votes as the Liberals gets 0 members out of 125 and the Liberals get 21?
But that's how the process
works. You win a riding. I don't understand why that's at issue.
Well, if you don't understand, then why? I mean, what are we going to do? So it's not it's the proportion of voters don't matter, and it's just a matter of elected officials. Why do we have rules within the National Assembly that talk about the percentage of vote that you get before you get recognized as a parliamentary group? The percentage of vote that you get is an indicator that is taken into account, and we need to take that into account. And fortunately, there's opponents that have come up and support me over the last few days. Françoise David, I didn't expect her, the former leader of Quebec Solidaire, came out yesterday to say that I need to be within the National Assembly. A few former Parti Québécois ministers came out to say that even the former leader of the Parti Québécois, Jean-François Lisée, came out to say that I need to be within the National Assembly. Some former Liberals, you would be surprised how many, opponents are currently coming out and saying this makes no sense, this is undemocratic, it's the worst distortion of democracy in Quebec's history. If we don't do anything, we can stay there and we can say, okay, that's fair. It's an elected member. It's the end of it, and then see the participation rate decreasing election after election. And I don't think that's a good sign or a good
that's a big stretch to suggest that would happen. But I'll let you have that. My question to you would be, if you want to make the change, and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems to me in an interview I had done with you, or we had done with you at one point before the election, I had asked you if you would change the system if you won, and you said no, you wouldn't. So why would you change it now that you lost?
I didn't. I'm not saying that we need to change the system. I know that that's not going to happen because Mr. Legault now is against it and Ms. Anglade as well. What I'm saying is that we need to try and I'm not asking for the end of the world. I'm just asking to do press conferences within the National Assembly and have an office to get the group that come to the National Assembly.
What if you did the press conferences from across the street in an office? Why is there a difference?
Well, because that's for interest groups. We're not an interest group. We're a political party that represents 13% of the voters in Quebec. And you cannot deny that. I mean, it's a fact. And
no one's denying it. I'm just wondering.
To give you an example of what happened in the past. Quebec Solidaire, when they got their elected members initially, they got less than 4% of the vote nationally. When the ADQ got elected members in the National Assembly, they got less than 6.4% of the vote. When the Equality Party got 4 members, they got 5% of the vote, if I recall, or 4% of the vote. I mean, we're talking about something huge. It never ever happened. There's an historic distortion right now, democratically speaking, and we need to address it. We can't say it doesn't matter. I mean, if we say that, we're going to send a very bad signal to all those voters, and that's what I'm saying today.
Yeah, although I will tell you just saying a minute ago, this is the worst distortion of democracy in Quebec history seems a bit extreme. I think when people hear that, we'll go sit back and go, what are you talking about?
Well, it's never happened that 13% of people didn't get represented in the National Assembly. The worst distortion before that was the REN in 1966. They got 6% and they didn't get any elected members.
And we managed to live through that, and the party then disappeared. So I'm wondering, in your case,
it merged with the Parti Québécois,
but it no longer exists as it was. But what about the Conservative Party? Some people might look at this saying, despite the fact you got 500,000 votes, you have no members. You're now creating a bit of a stink with wanting to protest, which I think will bother a lot of people just hearing that word. And then, hold on a second. Hang on a second. You also said that excluding the Conservatives isn't sending a good message. Is threatening to protest and calling on people to come out and support you, is that sending a good message?
Well, look, first off, that was questions by the media. That's the media. It's not me. I didn't say that in my press conference.
You're quoted as saying that.
I said there's going to be consequences. I didn't say I was organizing a protest.
Yeah, but it sounds threatening, and it sounds like a sore loser, honestly.
Well, you can say that, but that's not the case. I mean, that's not the reality. The reality is there's a distortion, and I'm not the only one. Fortunately, there's people from all other parties that are recognizing it. And I can tell you, when I spoke to some political leaders of other parties, some of them were supporting me as well. So, I mean, they're not doing it because they're conservatives. They're doing it because they're Democrats first and foremost, and that's what I am as well.
Okay, so what's the timeline here? You said negotiations are going to begin, and then if not, there will be a protest in front of the National Assembly. What's the timeline?
I never said there would be a protest in front of the National Assembly.
Well, what will there be? What is the plan then?
The plan is to negotiate. The negotiation process is going to stop, obviously, when the Parliament resumes. The Parliament is going to resume in a little bit more than a month. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a month of negotiation. By the way, we're not the only ones who are going to negotiate. As you know, there's two political parties that are also negotiating.
Okay, I don't care about them right now. For the purposes of our conversation, let's say it's November 29th. You negotiated for a month. Nothing has changed. Then what?
Well, there's all sorts of things that we can do. It's not just a protest. We can do a petition. We can table a bill. We can do a coalition. We can bring up opponents with me and do all sorts of activities. I mean, there's tons of plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. But my plan is not B, C, D, E. It's Plan A. And my Plan A is to make sure that Mr. Legault recognizes that 13% of Quebecers voted for us, and those 500,000 people have a right to have the leaders speaking at the National Assembly in front of the press.
How optimistic are you, Mr. Duhaime?
I'm very optimistic because I do believe that we have a very good case. I see every single day more and more opponents supporting us on that issue, and I'm quite confident that that's going to change. And I think also the voice of the Conservative Party of Quebec is very important within the National Assembly, especially on the eve of a very strong recession that could come up.
I don't argue with that, but I don't think Mr. Legault is receptive at all, that he's made that very clear.
And I want to just ask one last thing. Okay, that's fine, and that's your opinion. We all have opinions here, including one that suggests that, you know what, it's too bad, so sad, but we don't give participation medals for people in politics. You didn't win, you lost, these are the consequences. Salut la visite. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that democracy is not just that the person that wins gets 100% of the power. The democracy is to make sure that all ideas this is what parliaments are all about. It's about ideas that come from different parts of Quebec, and to make sure they're on the table. To exclude people is a very bad idea. It's always better in a democratic society to have people who disagree around the table and negotiate with you instead of having them outside protesting against you.
Okay.
And that's the problem that we had over the last 2 years. There was a democratic deficit. There was a lot of people who disagreed and were not represented, and I wanted to make sure that gap was reduced. And unfortunately, now we have this problem and we need to fix it.
Mr. Duhaime, are there too many political parties in Quebec?
Well, I think we're in a transition, honestly. As you know, the Liberals and the Parti Québécois did their worst showing ever. I mean, it's the worst showing of the Liberals since the beginning of Confederation. And then the Parti Québécois did its worst showing also. I think it's a transition. There's two old parties that are, split on the division of Federalist separatists that are phasing out. There's three other parties that are going.
Yeah, I was looking for a yes/no. Are there too many parties or not?
Well, what I'm saying is that in a transition period, it's normal to have more parties because you have the upcoming parties and you have the parties that are going down. But I'm confident that next election or the election after, there's going to be less parties. Yes.
And maybe electoral reform should be coming as well.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen in the current context because we have the government and the official opposition have no interest.
But maybe you'll be in favor of it next time around.
Well, I'm in favor of the better representation, but there's not just the democratic reform that could do it. There's other things that we can do to fix it as well, and that's what I'm asking right now.
Mr. Duhaime, I want to thank you for your time. I got a feeling we may be chatting again. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Eric Duhaime, leader of the Quebec Conservative Party. He said protest, not his words. That's what was, according to the media. I don't know. Sure sounded like to me like that was he was saying.
This is a very curious situation in my mind.